Hi guys, today I want to share with you a bit of my experience related to the open work permit. You watching right now might be planning to come to Canada soon with your spouse, and you might be curious to know about how this works, whether or not you will be able to work here. So I will be sharing with you my experience coming here together with my husband, where he was an international student, he was studying here, and I was coming along here as a dependent, as his spouse. And before I start, I want to say up front that I am not an immigration consultant, I am not an immigration lawyer, so I am not giving out any legal advice or any advice whatsoever here. So my goal is just to share with you my experience and maybe point you out to some resources where you can read in more detail about this. So let's go to the official government website, the CIC website. You can access this via cic.gc.ca and simply search open work permit. So here it says that an open work permit is a work permit that is not job specific. So it means that this work permit is not tied to a particular employer or a particular offer. And normally, in most cases, this open work permit would allow you to work for any company, for any employer. But when you get this open work permit, if you get this piece of paper, then usually at the very bottom, it will list the industries or type of work where you are not allowed to work in. So there are certain restrictions, and pay close attention to that. So when we came to Canada around 2.5 years ago, my husband came here on a study permit. He was an international student. So as an international student, you would be allowed to work under certain conditions, up to a certain number of hours. If you want to know more about that, then you might want to check out my other video, which I link here. But at that time, my husband fully focused on his studies and he didn't have any time to work. But before we came here, when we applied, he applied for a study permit, while I applied for an open work permit. So as his dependent, I was eligible to apply for an open work permit. So from what I heard, from what I read, in most cases, it is not very difficult to get that open work permit approved. But of course, it is an application process and an officer will review the application. So there is never 100% guarantee of whether you will get it or not. But from what I've read so far in forums and so, it seems that most people would get their open work permit if they follow all the rules and if they follow the application process and so on. In my case, for me and my husband, it worked out pretty well. He got his study permit within, I think, around 1.5 months, and I also got my open work permit within around that same time. I think that is pretty awesome. This is what I really love about Canada, that they thought this all through, meaning that while the student is studying, focusing on his or her studies, if they bring along their spouse, then the spouse, rather than just staying at home doing nothing the whole day, wasting time, in most cases they are actually allowed to work on this open work permit. And they've made it quite easy because it's an open work permit, meaning that you don't need a specific offer. It doesn't need to be from a specific company, but you can work anywhere. And what most students and spouses of students end up doing is in the beginning working in the service industry, for example, working in a restaurant or as customer service. I myself worked at a furniture store once, and I also worked as a barista at Starbucks once. So I think that in the beginning, when you just arrive, don't be too picky. It's a good idea once you get settled here after 1 month or two to, as soon as possible, just get a job, any job, even if it is far below your experience or your skill level. I mean, most people who come here to Canada, they are highly skilled. They have masters, PhDs, and they were managers, VPs in their country. like I was. But once you come here, you need to try and integrate into society as fast as possible. And apart from that, you also want to try and gather some savings again here. So rather than just doing nothing, it's always a good idea to just work anything, because that way you can get some income so you can contribute to your household income. But not only that, I think the awesome thing about working, no matter what work it is one, you will be able to improve your English skills much faster than if you were to join any course, because you would be using your English in a conversational way on a daily basis. The second benefit is also of taking up any job is that you get used to how people work here in Canada. It's not that it's that different, I would say personally, but still from a maybe cultural point of view, there might be some interesting things that you learn when you actually work here. And number three, of course, most important is that if you work in any kind of job, you will get references here. And those references will be very, very important once you are on your way to get a better job. You don't want to work at McDonald's or Dollarama or so forever. That's just like a starting point. Eventually, as soon as possible, you want to work in a better job, but for that, usually you would need to have some references. So getting any kind of job in the beginning is the fastest way to get references. So what happens after the open work permit expires? It depends. It really depends on the main applicant. So for example, in my case, my husband graduated from his 1-year certificate program, but after that he got what is called a PGWP, or a postgraduate work permit. And if you want to know more about that, then I will link for you the video up here so you can check that out. Usually students after graduating here in Canada, they would be eligible for what is called this postgraduate work permit. But again, there are certain requirements for that. And again, you should always refer to the official government website to read the requirements in detail. But let's say you've got this postgraduate work permit already. Then usually your spouse would be able to apply for an open work permit. And again, nothing is said about whether or not that will be approved or not, because you will need to fill out an application form, and you need to fulfill certain requirements. Anyways, in most cases, if you fulfill the requirements and you follow the application steps, then I would say that in many cases you would be able to get your open work permit. I'm sorry that I'm always a bit vague using the terms many and most, because there is no certainty in these things. I mean, you are likely to get something, but there are always cases where for some reason it doesn't work out. But I don't want to discourage you in any way. The most important thing is that you read the website carefully, read the requirements carefully, and as long as you follow everything, then the chances are very high that you will be able to get it. By the way, in case you're curious to know about how much you can earn while working here for a limited number of hours per week as a student, then you might want to check out my other video, which I link in the end cards here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.